as the SHAC, but hopefully that will give us extra time to work on our recommendations. And I'll have that reminder again towards the end of the meeting before we adjourn. But welcome. Thank you all for being here. I hope that everybody did get some materials that would be helpful for today. One of those, of course, is the meeting minutes from January the 18th, which we will look to approve here in a minute. But some of the other documents include the written drafts for our wellness committee and our mental and behavioral health committee. And then we're going to have a little bit longer presentation from our human development and sexuality committee today, as well as a brief presentation for us as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. Let me first just call through all of the participants that we have in attendance here. And I'll just go down the list. So myself, Aurora Martinez-Jones, we have Ryan Smith, Denise Ray, Hillary Setterquist, Amy Lusselman, Becky Laswell, Brandy Hafner, Gina Norton, Kayla Thompson, Kelly Darby, Leslie, Laura Darden, Michelle Andrew, Melissa Vandermeer, Dr. Monica Faulkner, Nyanyan Dunn, and Robin are all listed here as participants on the Zoom link today. All right, so Hillary, did you want to present the SHAC meeting minutes?
Yes, we sent out the minutes by email. Does anybody need them in the chat? Oh, okay, sounds like everybody got them.
Yep.
I'm not going to go through them with a fine-tooth comb, but does anybody have any changes or suggestions they felt like they need to make in the minutes? Going once, going twice. Okay, I will take silence as they are accepted as they are. A motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. Sounds like minutes approved.
All right. So then we did have, we wanted to do a short presentation for today, but wanted to provide an overview of the SEL curriculum. I know we had a few years ago a presentation and thought that this would be a good time for a refresher. So Ryan, I'll turn it over to you to introduce our presenter.
All right, thank you. Yes, and probably the last time that you heard from our former curriculum or coordinator of social emotional learning, Ms. Rochelle Fink. She was with us for a few years. You might recognize that name, but she's actually went to work in the district that she lives in. She lives out in Taylor and is working in a similar position out there as of now, and created an opportunity for us to bring in Ms. Gina Norton, who was with Round Rock ISD in the past and went out of state for a little bit, but then came back as soon as she could in this new role. And we've been very excited to have her for the last several months. So I know she's ready to jump in and give an overview, and I'll turn it over then to Gina.
All right.
Oh, sorry, I think I accidentally muted you, Gina. You're gonna unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Sorry
okay, good. I put the link to the presentation in the chat box, and I'll also present it. It may be some of the things you've already heard before when Rochelle was presenting. Can you guys see it? Not yet? Okay.
No, I don't see it yet. I got the link in the chat, but I don't see the presentation. There we go.
Okay. All right. Zoom is, am I still here? I can't tell. It's like giving me a white screen.
I can hear you and see you. Yeah.
All right. So we're good. I'm a little new to Zoom, so we will give this a shot. So that's my contact info there on the front. Let's see. I have to figure out how to advance the slide. Okay, there we go. All right. This is me. This is just a little bit about me. I did teach in Round Rock for 8 years over at CD Folks. I did a little bit of everything. but primarily special ed. I did the Focus and Achieve programs. I also did inclusion, co-teaching, teaching summer school, lots of different hats there. I went upstate in New York and did behavior specialist work, did a lot of MTSS systems work and SEL. So a lot there as well. And just some things. I'm working on my MTSS coaching endorsement currently through Region 13. So that's my newest endeavor process. All right, so just a little bit about SEL. We do base our SEL on the frameworks presented by CASEL. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with CASEL and their competencies. We do have learning targets specifically for Round Rock. This is the elementary version. And then there is, if I can figure out how to switch back, there we go, secondary version. Is the screen going with me when I change that?
Yeah, you're good.
Yes.
Okay, good. And so the different targets for the CASEL competencies for Round Rock itself. And you guys, if you have any questions, just let me know as we go through, or you can tell me at the end. All right. Now I've lost my, okay, my ability to advance. All right. And then this just goes a little bit into what all the competencies are and what that means. So we have self-awareness, self-management, decision-making, building relationships, and social awareness. So those are the ones we hit specifically when we're talking about SEL instruction. This is our learning framework for Round Rock, and it also has the link over to the SEL website through Round Rock ISD. So the things we focus on are explicit instruction of the SEL content, the climate and culture of the building, parents, families, and communities, integrating the academics with SEL, and staff social emotional learning as well, which we have had increased need for this year especially. All right, and this just is from CASEL, and it gives us the research on what SEL does for us. So we definitely see an improvement in social skills as well as that relating over to the academic skills as well. And belongingness, school attendance are all impacted by SEL. We see a decline in mental health issues related to trauma and that kind of thing. Students learn skills to focus in on their anxiety. Sorry, I have a big dog back here who is barking for me. Behavior problems, it also addresses substance abuse issues and prevention on those things. Long-term benefits, and it's also a wise financial investment in the future. We're seeing colleges more and more wanting those SEL skill development areas when they're looking at students coming in. All right, so on the staff version, we are seeing a lot of SEL needs there. And at the last coordinator meeting, so each campus has their own coordinator, which I'll talk more about in a minute, but we did an SEL jam board of what are you doing to support your staff internally right now. And so I wanted to click over to that and show you guys what some of the great things they're doing on campuses to really support their staff and help them when they need things. So there's 2 or 3 pages. We have people that are going in and taking over if someone needs them to, if they just need a little break or just some time to work on something they didn't get to yet. We have campuses doing jeans all year to make everyone more comfortable. A lot of treats, a lot of notes to people for support, some socials. there's several campuses doing weekly check-in forms for their staff. So, you know, how are you feeling on Monday? Do you need some support? And then the counselors or a social worker coming in to help them just to talk. We have different campuses doing friendship days, random acts of kindness, weekly joy and gratitude journals or gifts. Administrators writing notes. We have people that are doing wellness days as well, affirmation boards. Some campuses bring in a masseuse, and you can do that on and off time when you're like on your lunch break or whatever. Cutting down on meetings as well is an important one. But I just thought it was nice to show just a variety of things that are going on out there to support the teachers. All right, let me switch back over. Oh, yes, I should be able to fix a link to the Jamboard and put that in the chat. There you go. You should be able to see it. Hopefully you will. All right. So moving on along for SEL, Dr. Grosso can address this as well, but we now have our social worker in place for staff needs. So that's another resource we have available for them. All right, so SEL in the curricula in Round Rock ISD. So in the classroom, we have explicit and implicit instruction. We have a lot of counselors that push in and do some SEL lessons in addition to the teachers doing the lessons. Our curriculum pre-K to 8 is second step, but there are lots, and I'll show you a lot of the different supplementary programs that are going on out there. We also have project-based and service learning opportunities at various schools, as well as mentoring that is available. For our school-wide climate and culture practices, we have a lot of PBIS. Probably the most used SEL type program in the district or for culture and climate is restorative practice. And we have a lot of school-wide climate systems, Capturing Kids' Hearts, Leader and Me. There's a lot of others as well that are out there. So that being said, SEL is addressed on all campuses, but it looks different on each one. Campus administrators have that decision-making autonomy, so they can pick what they want to use. And there are lots of options, and we get more and more all the time. Each campus does have a SEL coordinator that I meet with periodically so that we can keep a pulse on what's going on. I can push out resources and information to them. And we have a good communication system back and forth. The high school campuses do focus heavily on restorative practice. 83% of them use that. And the middle school and elementary, they are just a variety of things that they use to address SEL. But as far as campus usage, you can look across the board, see restorative is across the district at 80% of campuses using that. Second step is 78%. Again, that's only K-8, so that kind of gives you, it's really 100% of our elementary and middle school that have access to it. Most of them use it. Capturing Kids' Hearts is the next, is another one, and PBIS up there in the 40% range. Emergent Tree, which is a systems piece. It does tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. But again, at a systems level, and it also supports our tier 2 and 3 kids a great deal. And then Leader and Me, which is based on the 7 Habits curriculum. That's used in 9% of the campuses, and Mindful Classroom as well, which is a mindfulness program. But that's not all. We also have students that get access to these different programs as well. And we have one team of middle school SEL coordinators and teachers that write their own SEL curriculum called Pathways, and that's over at Cedar Valley Middle School. So we have a lot going on out there. All right, so for focus on our Tier 1 classroom, I've been putting out a newsletter, which I'll show you an example of in a minute. And it does focus in on Tier 1 classroom management strategies that are easy to apply for teachers to use to build their toolbox. They're all research-based and have research behind them to show their effectiveness. And I try to make it as easy as possible, a step-by-step process of how you do this. Here's something you can print out so you have all your steps right next to you. And these are rolled out monthly in the newsletter, along with other resources as well. And then we have our SEL campus coordinator meetings. We share strategies, resources, good things that are happening around the district. We can support each other on implementation, and we can help brainstorm if there's any issues going on. And I've been coordinating over the last couple of months, just trying to get out to each campus and see their program in action and what they have set up for SEL, which is, it's amazing what's out there. A lot of them have mindfulness rooms, they have sensory paths, there's all kinds of things going on, and it's really exciting to see. All right, here's the sample newsletter that I was telling you, and I'll put the link for it in the chat as well, if I can. I'll have to do it in a minute. But this is what the February newsletter looked like. Our focus was on pre-correction this month. It tells you a little bit about what it is and then how you implement it. And then there are lots of examples. There are videos. There's an implementation checklist, and it always gives the research behind whatever intervention it is that we're talking about. And then this one was just a mindfulness thing for teachers, some things they can do to help take care of themselves. And we also roll out some curriculum pieces. So we rolled out for the month of February kindness activities. And these are built into our scope and sequence for second step, K-8, and then the high school has their own just activities that go out. But at the end, I will put that link in there so you guys can access it. All right, so I will get to the question in the chat in just a minute. I think I have something that will address that. All right. Okay. All right. So SEL for parents and the community, that's still a work in progress. We are looking at doing a parent blog called Morsels. And we have just set up in conjunction with the Texas PTA to do a roundtable with behavioral health and counseling so that we can talk more to the parents and get their ideas and the needs that they may have and roll out some information on what programs we have currently available. So those are in the works, and I'm certainly looking for other ideas on that as well. Some of the other SEL initiatives that we're working on, we do provide funding for buildings so they can ask us if they have a need. And then we will see if we can fund that for them. So some of the things that I've gotten requests for and we're funding are like a sensory pathway, calm corners, mindfulness training for staff so that they can then turnkey for the rest of the district. And funding some wellness programs for teachers and staff. We will be doing our SEL summer camp again this year. It'll be a second annual camp. It's for students transitioning from 5th to 6th grade, and we will run 6 two-day camps in July. So the students, it's free to the students, and we'll be able to take about 360 kids in those camps. So we're excited about that. They were really successful last year. Everyone enjoyed them and have been, just asking since I got here, basically, are you doing the camps again? And I was like, I'm sure we will. So we are. We're currently in the planning process. Dr. Grosso helps me with those as well. So we are working hard and to get those back in. We're going to have a PE and art component this year, so we're excited about those as well. We're also working with Williamson County Child Advocacy Center to provide some curriculum around the new Senate Bill 9 requirements. So that's in the works as well. And someone had asked about how do we know if our programs are effective? So one thing we're looking at is an SEL screener that will be a benchmarking screener that will be able to get data on our programs addressing what the students need them to. So that's going to be one way. Right now, all we have is really anecdotal data, and we really need that data piece, and that's something we're working on and hope to get going really soon. And the board is working on that as well. All right, and that is what I had for you guys. If you have any further questions, let me figure out how to stop presenting. All right, I think I did it.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions?
Yes, this is Michael. I have a question.
Okay.
Sorry, and I just caught the last bit of your presentation, so I apologize if you had already addressed this. For the camps, is there a reason why there aren't other age groups involved?
Well, right now, I think last year, and Dr. Grosso can talk to this a little bit, is they were really concerned with the students who hadn't been in school and they were transitioning to a new campus. And I think that's why they were targeted at that 5th to 6th transition piece. And we just kind of kept that going for this year since I'm new and just getting, established in the role. I would love to expand that to more grade levels in the future. And again, we got to fund it and all that good stuff. But definitely that is something that's on my radar to do.
Awesome. And if you are a practitioner in the field, like I'm a BCBA, is there any way to sign up to volunteer?
Let me get with Dr. Darden and Dr. Grosso and see what we can do with that.
Okay.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Monica Faulkner, you have a question?
Yes. Is there a specific curriculum that y'all are looking at with the Child Advocacy Center?
They have a curriculum and I don't know much about it yet. I'm going to go see it in action. There's one school that uses it already, one of the elementaries, and I'm going to go watch them, and then we're going to meet with them and see about expanding it to the other schools. But I don't have the curriculum yet. So that's a piece we're still investigating.
And it's going to be for elementary level?
That is my understanding. I don't know if they have a middle school, high school component as well. They may well have, but I'm going to see it at elementary.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Katie?
I actually have two questions.
Okay.
So I guess the first question I would have, you said that there were 83, if I'm not mistaken, % of our campuses are using restorative practice, but that it looks different on every campus. I guess I'm wondering if there are any cross checks in terms of discipline data outcomes and also what collaboration opportunities are there across campuses to share what's working, what's not working, what needs improvement, et cetera.
Okay, so as far as the sharing piece, it's kind of limited to the SEL coordinators and then just the behavioral and counseling staff, where we talk and meet together and talk about things. the other piece of your question, could you just repeat that for me? I'm sorry.
Just in terms of, I know that, you know, we're kind of getting some of the numbers around discipline. I'm trying to remember the acronyms for everything, and my brain is not like, but I know that, you know, there are targets for reducing some of those discipline numbers in terms of the board goals, for example. Is that being tied to our SEL, especially where restorative practice is concerned?
Yeah, I
Or
can
is
probably
that-
jump in and speak
Okay.
more to that. I think the definitely our area superintendents, when they work with the principals and the assistant principals, Ms. Norton has her team that collaborates and works together, but then they also have the administrators on the campus that share, excuse me, those different practices. And they definitely are tying it to that, those discrepancies that we have seen in school, out of school suspension, things like that. So that doesn't always go through our SEL department, but it definitely is more in the schools innovation leadership realm.
Does it filter down somehow, I guess, into the, like,
Yeah,
it seems like it would be informative in terms of what is and what isn't working on the SEL side.
yeah, I'd say the place that we mainly see that would be then on leadership team discussions on campus, as the both those groups then come together. I don't know if entire leadership teams cross, you know, pollinate campus to campus, but as those groups go back to their campus, they definitely are all part of the same teams there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions?
I'm not sure if this is sort of a redundant question based on what Katie asked. Maybe it is, but I was curious. Back earlier in the presentation where you reviewed the different programs used across the district, is that what Katie, is that what you were asking about? Is like, is it data informed on which programs go where, or is this different? Because I was just curious.
In part, and also whether the programs are effective at, you know,
addressing
how they're impactful and what the outputs are.
Yeah.
I think when we get our screener, we're going to have a lot more information on what's being effective where. And again, we can look at discipline data, but that's on the back end of it more than how effective are we in the tier 1 classroom at addressing those student needs.
So then how is it currently determined which of these, so I'm talking specifically about the one that's current SEL program usage across our ISD. So it looks like second step and restorative practices are used a lot. And then there's like capturing kids' hearts, emergent tree, mindful classroom, PBIS, and leader in me.
Yeah.
Leader in me is only 9%. So I'm just curious, like what's the decision-making process there about which ones are used the most?
So it's really an administrative decision. And I don't know if it's when they're coming in, if they're bringing new programs. It's right now I've just been focused on finding out what's going on out there, and then address more about, you know, what needs each building has. Are we addressing those well? Do we need to bring something else in?
Yeah, I can jump in and speak a little to that as well. Kind of on the initiation phase on several campuses. I'd say that definitely we value local kind of decision making, because our campuses are very different, have very different cultures, different years of experience of staff. You know, it plays a big role into it as well. And a lot of times our principals they'll spend, you know, a significant amount of time, you know, building that buy-in and building that understanding of their campus before they launch into a larger project. Like launching the Leader in Me is a multi-year, a lot of resources are pushed into that. Same with Capturing Kids' Hearts, same with a lot of these programs. So we really work with the principals to make sure that they understand how their particular community and culture fit with each program. And that's why we don't have a one-size-fits-all approach to it. That would probably be easier, you know, from like a management lens, but it's definitely not as customized as we want something like this to be. So what the outcome from that though is there is some inconsistency in the data and in the implementation too, because you might take a campus like Terra Vista, who's had Leader in Me for many years, had a real strong launch, had it going. And you have other campuses that are just now starting that process and might have had like a principal change a year or two in, you know, and then that slows things down. So I think in big projects like this, we do see some inconsistency because we do allow for that kind of local decision making on it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I want to, because we've been talking about this a lot in Mental and Behavioral Health Committee. So I want to just try to engage some of the members from that committee to ask any other questions that you might have on this particular topic, because I felt like Ryan, what you said made a lot of sense to me about, you know, the local, I mean, the administrators at the school sort of know the needs of that population the best, but because we have spent so much time talking about this in mental and behavioral health, I just want to make sure that everybody in the committee has their questions answered.
We can talk about this in our subcommittee meetings, but I just want to clarify that what we're looking for is not necessarily that everybody uses the same program, but that it's well communicated why a certain program is used, and that it's a little bit more equitable. Because what I'm hearing from parents and even committee members is that, well, at Westwood they take this much time, and at so-and-so they take this much time, and at other schools they don't do anything. And so it tends to be an equity issue, even for a school like Westwood. Well, they'll say, well, that's 30 minutes or 45 minutes that my student could have been studying. So, you know, and we believe in SEL, we believe in all of this. We agree that it's necessary, but I think maybe what we're proposing is a standardization and reporting and communicating what's going on in the district as far as these different initiatives. Not necessarily that everybody do the same thing.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sorry. I say what Ms. Norton was talking about as well with something we can price standardize on is a universal screener, right? So I think that is definitely something that we want to have that local customization, you know, available. But I think something like that, which I don't want to tell you what kind of recommendations to make, but that might be a good recommendation coming out of SHAC, you know, to have some kind of universal, consistent measurement tool, you know, that allows for different programs, but has consistent, you know, outcome data.
Thank you for that suggestion. That's great. And that's right up my alley. That's the area that I work in and actually did for Round Rock for quite a while.
Yep. And I like the idea of a standardized time allotment as well, so that we are all putting the same emphasis on it.
We do have a couple other questions. Want to make sure we get to them before we wrap this up. So Cornell, if you'd like to go next.
Yeah, it's not really a question. It's in a way piggybacking on what Michael was saying. And that is just to emphasize that, you know, really having some kind of standardization of, hey, you know, what are we trying to achieve with this programming? So then, you know, each school can decide really how they do that, but there is some kind of common, you know, foundation that this program is being built on that can be customized by people who do know the students, you know, better than, you know, maybe somebody that's not at that school, but still, hey, here is a floor that, you know, that this programming is not going to, you know, go below. So I don't even know if that needs to be as standardized as saying, hey, you have to spend this much time. It's more, these are kind of the, you know, the key principles or the key you know, metrics that we want to be able to achieve and say, hey, here's what we did with our programming. And there's some kind of accountability to that so that you don't have, as Michael was saying, you know, one school like, oh, they don't really do anything. And another school that maybe, you know, in the eyes of some teachers, maybe even family members are saying they do too much. So that there's some kind of balance and some kind of understanding of why programming is happening and what is being achieved with that programming that everybody is kind of on the same page about.
Thank you. All right, I think next we have Jennifer Faulkner.
Really very similar to Cornell. I think that communication of what is the standard core components of the SEL program, and then, the schools have the district maybe to choose some add-ons that are not necessarily those core components, but I think it's kind of a common theme in the district that you begin to see things that are in certain places and that lack of standardization, and you have this feel that you may need to relocate to get a certain something or another. And that's a very difficult, practice to continue, I think, to create that creates a lot of frustration for parents. So I will just wrap up with that core components is really critical.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. And then Katie.
Yeah, just to kind of follow up too on what Michael and Cornell were saying. And I mean, you said that the administrative staff at each campus kind of makes the decision, but are there already, or would it help to have some sort of guidelines in place in terms of making those selections based on the population of students and the needs there? Like how are those? I'm wondering how those decisions get made.
So there are some guidelines. I mean, there's not, because essentially we won't fund just anything, when it comes to any program. There's certain elements that Gina and her team work with to identify area, and honestly, area superintendents and the leadership teams over there also work quite a bit to help the campuses make those decisions. So there is it's a long list, I guess, of options, but it's not unlimited. I can say I'm pretty confident that the area superintendents and the principals have an expectation that there is an SEL component on every campus, but it's not consistent, as we've talked about, of what it looks like.
Thank you. Anybody else before we move on? Well, thank you so much for this presentation. I think obviously this was a topic of a lot of interest for our group, and I think we'll let the appropriate committees continue the conversations there. And if we need you anymore, I'm assuming we can reach out if we wanted to get any additional information. All right, so then I captured your link as well, and we'll try and include that in our minutes. Good. So next we have on the agenda the discussion on committee work, and I believe everyone got the written drafts for the two committees, and then we're going to have a little bit longer presentation from our Human Development and Sexuality Committee. So let me start with the Wellness Committee. Would y'all like to go over y'all's recommendations?
I think I'm going to speak on behalf of the committee again this month. Good. So, and my apologies, the draft that went out to everybody was very much our internal draft. It's not worth reading. Don't take your time to look at that. We're still hashing out the details tonight. But last month we covered 3 different things, and I'll run over those really briefly. The idea that some teachers and campuses might be taking away recess as a form of discipline. We don't know how often this is happening. We're still awaiting some staff input on that. I have some emails and phone calls out. The second one is looking for some standardization in what food treats go out for birthdays to balance a lot of different needs. And we've had some great input from our food services staff who think they can address that through the handbook. And then we have had wonderful discussions about school gardens, and these kind of things matter to our committee. I know they're not really exciting, but we do like gardens. So we've been talking to our food services staff about that also, and they think they can address it on the website. There are 2 other broad areas that we've been looking at that we're still trying to figure out where they fit. They might possibly fit into the revisions for the wellness plan, which those get approved next year, but we're kind of still working these ones out. The first one is goals for having some multi-campus sports days, things where, maybe several kids from an elementary school different elementary schools gather at a middle school and they see that fitness matters to their parents, to the community at large, et cetera. And the other one is a question of who reviews playground equipment to make sure that it is age appropriate. And I also have some emails and phone calls out to staff on that one. So we'll keep talking in our committee tonight, and we will have language with whatever that comes of these at our next meeting. Good.
Thank you.
All
Anybody
right.
have anything else to add or any questions for this committee? Jennifer Faulkner, go ahead.
Just a comment. I know from the 2018 bond cycle that the playground refresh was a big topic and one that received substantial funding. I don't remember if there was a definition of when that aging cycle happens that was ever settled upon, but I might suggest Terry Wooster as a starting point to get some information because he was very involved with that during that bond cycle.
Yeah, Terry is on my next list to call if the first group of people I contacted don't know, but he would definitely know the answer, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you very much for your hard work on the Wellness Committee. I know y'all are continuing to meet tonight as well, so we'll continue to look forward to the next drafts of your recommendations. So then the Mental and Behavioral Health Committee.
I guess I'll speak for our group. We don't have a lot of changes from last month in the first three, but I'll just kind of review over them. We are in discussions about one part of it. In the essence of measuring equity of services for all students. So we might have some specifics with that, but basically we'd like to recommend the board set some, criteria for measurements of success for mental health and behavioral health services for students and for staffs. So that's our first recommendation. Our second is to require all staff to take TBSI training. This is a 3-hour training that's free through Region 4. And it encompasses everything from conflict resolution to positive behavior supports, even with restraints when they're legal and not legal. And I just read a brief on a lawsuit that's going to the Fifth Circuit, being appealed to the Fifth Circuit about restraints on a non-SPED kid. So this is something that all students need to, or all teachers rather, need to be trained on. Our third recommendation is to look at and report how much of that 45% of SPED money that is typically used for general fund, to have an exact percentage of that. It doesn't say that clearly in the financials, and to have the board allocate as much of that back to SPED, especially in this time where we're having difficulty meeting services. And a fourth one, we have a lot of detail to that because we've had a lot of discussion on it, but we would like the district, the mental and behavioral health services that are already being done. So we're not talking about anything new, but we'd like to have more coordination, communication, and standardization of those services, like we were talking about SEL, on a web page that has a hub with links so that parents can see those. For instance, to find the SEL curricula that Round Rock uses, we had to kind of dig for it, whereas Westlake, you just Google it and it comes right up. And to create things like a transition fair for just like they do for SPED students, but for all students, so that they know what kind of supports and services with mental health and behavioral health that are available for them out in the community, in college. A lot of kids aren't aware of that. Also to with SB 11, which was enacted in the 86th legislature, there's supposed to be a K-12 curricula for mental health awareness, and just to have, a place where the district is communicating what is being done to implement those initiatives.
Thank you. And I wanted to, it was just hitting my memory, the fourth recommendation that you have was also really similar to one of the recommendations we had last year. It said support for a centralized location for Round Rock ISD entities to work with related to mental and behavioral health. That would have definitions for all of the, and so that was more about the entities and not necessarily just the resources. And so if y'all want to look back at some of the language we used from the recommendation last year, I can send that to you so you can have like a Word version of that to look at.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions or comments for this committee?
I have one.
Yeah.
In reading the recommendation, I was wondering on the first one, instead of asking the board to do that, can we just do that as a SHAC? And I say that because I've seen recommendations that aren't specific enough, and then they don't get implemented the way you want, and then we end up having to revisit it anyways. So I feel like the more clear you can be about exactly what you want, they can always vote and say no, but at least it's there in paper in front of them. So that was the thought I had about that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, so then I'll turn it over to human development and sexuality for y'all's presentation and discussion.
Okay, I'm just going to pull up my screen real quick. Where is it? Wrong thing. Okay, so we are, as y'all have probably heard me say, we are working on figuring out a new sex ed curricula for a couple different reasons. And one of the things that I wanted to do was really lay out the process and also have something that we can put on the SHAC website to let people know what we're doing. So this is a draft of what I would like to be able to put on the SHAC website. And I'm just going to go through it as quickly as I can, and then I'll ask some, I will definitely take questions. So what we're doing, what's currently happening in middle school, it's actually not Worth the Wait, it's called Living Well Aware, but it was formerly the Worth the Wait curriculum. Is taught in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. The curriculum's been modified by Round Rock ISD to exclude some content. Each grade is taught content for that grade level, and it kind of progresses as you go from 6th, 7th, and 8th. Campuses have a lot of leeway in how they decide what to do with it. So some teach it in science class, some teach it in their PE class, and some it's both. Like in 6th grade, it's PE, and then in 7th and 8th, it might be in science. Parents have the option of opting out of having their students participate, and we've asked in the past, and a small number of families do opt out. So right now in high school, though, health is not a mandatory subject in Texas for graduation, and sex ed in Round Rock ISD is only taught in the health class. Health is an elective, and when we've seen the numbers of students who take health, it's less than about 50 a year. It's not even offered on every high school campus. So the sex ed component in health classes are taught by an outside organization called Lifeguard. So the need for a new curricula really stems from two things. One is that in the last legislative session, there were new sex ed requirements that were passed. And then the Texas Education Agency had multiple committees working on new TEKS. And so our district has to comply with using a curricula that meets all of the TEKS requirements by August 2022. And then also for us, the Living Well Aware curriculum, which was formerly Worth the Wait, the purveyor has changed the 6th grade portions and is working on changing the 7th and 8th grade versions. So the versions that we're using are no longer relevant. They're not training people for those. So we've got to make a decision if we keep using that and adopt their new curriculum, or if we go a different route. And then also a change from this year is that the legislature is requiring parents to actually opt in. So teachers are going to have to be keeping track of which students actually have signed permission forms, or however the district decides to do that. And then this I put on here just for people who are not on the SHAC. Obviously, y'all know what a SHAC is, but I think a lot of people don't. And then I added a statement in here just to talk about how we're perceiving our commitments related to this. So we really want to make sure that it's a transparent process, that we're promoting health, and that we are being fair in terms of allowing parents the opportunity to view the curriculum and provide feedback. And I'll tell you how we're going to do that. So the process right now is our subcommittee, and I put all of our names up there because I think we all deserve like a round of applause because we've been working a ton on this, meeting weekly to go through things. So we identified curricula to review. We coordinated with the purveyors and publishers to sign non-disclosure statements and everything to get all the materials. We developed a rubric to go through the curricula. Right now we're in the middle of reviewing them, and we're going to choose 3 of them to present to the whole SHAC to vote on, so that we can then have public meetings. So we will bring 3 curricula forward to y'all to say, yes, let's have the public review them. During that time also, the Round Rock staff will look at whether or not the curricula are compatible with technology. And then we will have public meetings so that parents can look at the curricula. And I think we'll have to figure out a way to do those online and in person. And then we need to take it to the Board of Trustees to approve. So we were under a tight timeline. We had to expand it a little. So right now we're reviewing everything. The plan is now to have public meetings in April. I'm actually not sure if the SHAC is meeting in May, but if we are, that would be hopefully when we could vote on the final recommendation and then take it to the board in June. I don't think that we can work any faster than that without compromising just the transparency of what we need to do and the information we need to gather from the public. So I'm also in this PowerPoint going to let people know just about the non-disclosure forms that we've got and make sure that everybody can see the rubric that we've been using. I'll show you some pieces of that in a minute. And then the process for just our subcommittee approving which curricula we asked to move forward. So here's what we've been doing. We created a rubric with the help of some district staff who gave us some examples. So the main criteria is that the curricula have to meet the new Texas TEKS requirements, and there are a ton of them. I just put a snapshot of the rubric that has some of these. So these are what the TEKS look like. And we are looking for a curriculum for middle school. So we're looking at age range. We also included some additional considerations. These aren't things that the curricula has to do, but they're things we want to document so that when parents are looking at it, they can use our notes and say, okay, I see this. So these were just some of the things that we decided to include, like making sure that curricula avoids using shame and fear to educate youth, doesn't demean different groups, that sort of thing. And then we're also looking at considerations like, are the student handouts included? Is there a facilitator guide? Who can facilitate it? Is there a train the trainer model? How much does that cost? Because it's a big cost to the district. And also some curricula do have content for parents, or they have sessions for parents. So we're looking at that as well and trying to record that. And then these are the curricula that we are in the process of reviewing. We've gone through 4 and we're going to do 2 more. So one is actually a textbook, the one Texas Health Skills for Middle School. That is the only textbook that the State Board of Education approved that meets all the new TEKS requirements. So we did look at it, have thoughts on it, but I don't want to go into all the pros and cons of everything. I will say that none of us were thrilled, like overwhelmingly thrilled with anything that we saw. There's also a curriculum called Big Decisions, which is out of Healthy Futures from San Antonio, that was written by an OB-GYN. And then Living Well Aware is the one that we're currently using. Health Smart, I can probably safely say that that was off the table. It was a little bit too complicated and above level for some of our kids. And then we're reviewing Get Real and Advocates for Youth right now. And we chose these just by members of the committee just speaking up and saying, hey, let's review this one. So that is where we're at. And my hope is that we can put this on the SHAC website, let people know what we're doing. And then I can also start putting, as we have the rubrics done for each curricula, letting people see kind of our rubric and like what we say about each curricula. So I'll stop there. I hope that was fast enough, but detailed. And I can take any questions people have.
That was great. Thank you. Questions, comments? So Jennifer Faulkner.
Monica, I thought that was a really great overview. So thank you guys for laying that out very clearly. My only question, you mentioned that I think it's the TEA have the singular book that they have approved. Is that typical? And I guess, how does this play out if we are selecting something that is not TEA approved? I suppose as long as it meets the TEKS, that's okay. But I guess, why would they take the step to approve something? Have they had any comments on any of these other books? Can you maybe talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah.
Education.
Yeah, so it's not the TEA, it's the State Board of Education. So it's actually elected officials. And so there's absolutely politics within that I don't even know how to go into or want to right now. But only one of these is a textbook, just to be clear. The Health Skills for Middle School is the only textbook. All the rest of them are curricula. So it might be like Big Decisions is 10 different modules that are taught. And there's handouts and it's scripted for everything. And so everything that's not a textbook, right, it generally follows that format of having modules that just have handouts accompanying it, videos. Living Well Aware has a lot of videos. So that's kind of the difference. So the State Board of Education doesn't approve any of the curricula. It's us looking to make sure the curriculum meet all the TEKS requirements. And most of these curricula have it laid out, like, here are your TEKS requirements, here's how we met them. And within the TEKS requirements, that kind of guarantees that it's following like what state law says about sex education. Does that make sense to people?
And maybe Robin can speak more to it, but Robin, I think you told our committee that UT is reviewing more textbooks or curriculum. They're just behind.
Yeah, that's my understanding. They kept pushing back their finish date on their reviews of the different curricula according to the TEKS. It's just the legislature took a long time, the State Board of Education took a long time, and everybody got delayed. Yeah, so some of it, there's only one textbook so far because of delays, but there's others in progress. I joked with our committee about how we should get paid for our work and submit it all to UT.
Anybody else? This was really, I think it's very helpful. Ryan, do you think we'll be able to have that on the SHAC website?
Oh, definitely. I wanted to jump in too and just thank that committee and the staff that's been helping that committee. It's been a ton of work. And from the beginning, we've wanted to be as completely transparent, as we possibly can be. And I think that the plan going forward over the next couple of months is going to allow a lot of community members and everybody to kind of weigh in as well. We can definitely get that on the website. One piece that's going to the board Thursday is the part of new House Bill 1525, I believe it is that the board actually passes a resolution to direct the SHAC to do the work that you're doing right now. They've known along the way that we're doing the work, and I definitely expect that to be passed. I can't guarantee it, but I expect that to be passed Thursday night. That's just a formality in the new law. But once that does get that stamp of approval, then I'll post it on the website, and we can talk then as a group how we want to. I could probably put it in district e-news, some other ways that we can promote it to the community. One other piece that I know is already part of the plan, but it's part of that law, is that there does need to be at least 2 public meetings to review the curriculum. So I think we're probably planning on doing at least that many. But in the month of April, we are required to do at least 2.
And we will have to set a meeting in May also for our SHAC officer elections. So I believe we'll be good with having that May meeting. Anybody else, any comments or questions? All right. So then thank you so much for all y'all's hard work. Agreed. It's a lot of hard work. We have old business. I did want to, while we're on the topic of our SHAC website, just say I've talked with Ryan and we're just waiting on the technical people to move that SHAC button up so that we can have access to email. I'll let you speak on that.
I moved the link up, as I told Judge Jones, that that's the extent of my technical capabilities. So the link now is at least higher on the page, but we're running into some roadblocks with actually making a button go to an email address versus a URL. So our webmaster is working on that. So hopefully it'll be more prominent for folks to give that feedback, but we'll make sure that this presentation and everything is kind of above the fold so people don't have to scroll down to it when they go to that site.
And then I wasn't sure, Ryan, one of the questions that we had from before was just about whether or not you had gotten or know about any other actions that the board wanted to take on our previous recommendations, or if you had feedback about the previous recommendations, just as we're preparing for our recommendations moving forward.
Sure. So I'm working with Dr. Presley on getting some of that feedback from the board. I think probably in our next meeting, I'll be able to share a bit more on that. I think technically, or usually the way that it goes is you, for those of you that are new to the SHAC, you'll make your recommendations in May, I believe it is. And then as a district, we'll essentially give a response then to the board of what we think based on your recommendations, what we think is doable, and give what things would cost potentially. And then I shared that all with the board. Actually, I think it was my first day on the job. I shared that with the board back in September. And then it's really in their court at that point as to whether or not they take any of those recommendations or direct the superintendent to act on that. So as of now, I have not heard any directives coming from those recommendations from last year, but I'm going to follow up, or I have followed up, and we should have some feedback on that by our next meeting.
Thank you. I have a brief thing for new business, but before we move off of old business, was there any other old business that anybody wanted to discuss today? All right. And so then for new business, it's just kind of to put a little note out there. We did hear about a Round Rock high school student who had passed due to suicide, and we wanted to be sensitive about that and get some more information just about our response. I did want to just say that I am very sorry for all of our loss, for the community's loss. We do have Dr. Lewis, who we wanted to address that, who couldn't be here today, but we are going to expect to have Dr. Lewis visit with us at our next meeting, which is going to be April the 26th. So I just wanted to give that acknowledgement that, always a tough time for all of us in the school district, the community, the parents, the teachers, and wanted to just honor that. And then provide some space to let y'all know we are going to discuss that a little bit more in kind of response and supports when we have the ability to have Dr. Lewis with us. Yes, Denise.
I don't know if this is the right place for me to bring it up. That hearing you speak about that, I had heard about the student. I don't know the reason for the passing, but I had a concern about mental behavioral health it's a new business, I think. I don't know. Is this the right time to bring it up?
Yeah, this is new business. Go ahead.
Okay, so I don't know if y'all have seen lately on social media or anything like that. We've come across an Instagram account that students are following, and I think they are across pretty much all like high school campuses, middle school campuses, across the nation, really. And they're kind of like a confession account. And there's one in particular for Round Rock High School. It's called Round Rock Confessions. There's one for Stony Point. There's one for probably every campus. And I just recently came across this when my kids got flagged in it. So what it is it's an Instagram account owned by somebody. It's somebody sitting behind their screen, and any student can, or anybody can follow the account, and then they can send in a DM about their whatever they want to say. And that administrator posts it publicly, anonymously. So a lot of what we're seeing on this account is, I'm just going to make up a name. Joe Smith walked me out to my car and tried to rape me, and nothing can be done about it. Sophia Jackson is a real, fake ASSBITCH, and all she does is talk about people behind her back. And Sophia is also following the account. So then she starts to chime in and say, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean that. If you guys have a problem, like, please talk to me. I try to be really nice. She starts defending herself. But the allegations, I mean, they're talking about staff on there, like Mr. So-and-so is a pedophile. So-and-so like checks people out. There is no boundaries whatsoever. These kids, minors' names are put out there for the public to see. It's a private account, but people have infiltrated it. Parents have gotten into it. I have screenshots from it, from kids sending it to my daughter because her name showed up. And, they went after my college kid. So it's a concern. And I've spoken with Round Rock ISD police about it, went to the administrators at Round Rock High School. The APs have told us and her that there's nothing you can do about it, that it's private. I've contacted David's Legacy Foundation. It's the anti-bullying organization here in Texas, to see if we could find out who is behind the account so that we can shut it down. And so I just wanted to put that out, just like for parents here. It's across the district. I talked to David's Legacy Foundation is across the nation. These confession accounts are huge. It leaves kids open to bullying. So the allegations don't even have to be true, but your name is out there. And I just keep thinking, until, it's fun, these kids are, enjoying the gossip, but until your name shows up there and they're talking about you, how do these kids respond to that?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. My children are a little bit younger, but it's really, I think shocking and worrisome as a parent, and I can appreciate sharing that information. I know I had seen a recent news report that we had gotten already, kind of an update about the Gaggle service that we use, and that's for within, I think, school communications. So I don't know that would really pick up those outside school communications. But I don't know, Ryan, if there's any other thought or note that we could take, or consideration we could make regarding what's really impacting our students, even from outside of the school district control.
Yeah, I'd say that Gaggle definitely is just internal, within our domain. But let me follow up with Dr. Lewis. I'm sure that she's talked with her counseling team and they talk with students about it. But
it is really concerning. I can't emphasize that enough. I know that y'all, understand that. I've seen it, and I've seen, like I said, my kid is pretty resilient. We talk a lot about, social media and false allegations and things like that. And it's fun, like I said, for some kids to sit there and just wait for the next thing to show up. Who are they going to talk about next? And rape allegations, sexual assault allegations, They're really, really serious. And these kids are being named, their first names and their last names. And it's going to fall upon somebody who can't handle it. You know, I'm thankful that we have the discussions, but I don't know, maybe my kid might be in a state of mind one day and she comes across an accusation that she can't handle. How many of our kids, I mean, the account has 2,000 followers, I think. I'm just worried. And I, you know, like I said, I've impressed it upon the Round Rock ISD police. David's Legacy says that we can get a subpoena. Someone needs to get a subpoena, a lawyer, any lawyer, whether it's our district lawyer, but someone can get a subpoena because they did this with Snapchat to find out who is behind the account. If it's a student, that student can be in serious trouble for cyberbullying because a crime has been committed, and their parents need to be notified and they can be accountable as well. But it needs to set a precedent for these kids who are sitting behind a screen.
And I wonder if maybe that ends up being a recommendation that could be made for the board to pursue that. That might be the form that it takes. We do have some additional questions and comments. Cornell, you wanted to go next?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the understandable and I'd say even justifiable response to something like this, which is absolutely awful and preys on the most fundamental fears that come with just being an adolescent, being in high school. And I think there's a place for that. But I also want to offer that, you know, along with that, because I'm not saying this, what I'm going to suggest needs to happen instead of trying to get to whoever the account holder is. And I just want to offer that there are some various cries for help in the appeal to this, in the people who are actually doing this, and the account holder, and along with trying to, you know, maybe shut it down before more people get hurt. I really think it's also a call for, okay, how do we find ways to address what is really fundamental in making something like this attractive? And I say that because if we don't do that and we just seek to shut this down, it's going to pop up somewhere else, because no, in a healthy way or not healthy way, it's meeting some kind of need that those who are participating have. And if we can try to find ways through, you know, mental health, you know, suggestions and just the different avenues we have to try to address what the actual need is, then we won't have to worry as much about these things popping up, you know, Facebook, you know, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. We can try to address the root while also shutting down the dangerous avenues, and hopefully, you know, get the people who are finding some need from these avenues, get them the help and address the needs that they have that I think are much more deeply seated. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for the comment. Michael?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, was this Instagram or Snapchat?
It's Instagram.
Okay. And what is the handle?
It's called Round Rock Confessions. It's
Okay.
Round Rock Confessions.
Round Rock Confessions. Okay. Thank you.
It used to be public, and then they got, I think, someone must have tipped them, and so they changed the name, and then it went private, and now it's called Round Rock Confessions again. And you know, I saw a post the other day of somebody saying, hey, they posted it and they said, hey guys, you know, I know when we're posting things, sometimes it's funny, but a lot of times it's not. And remember that we're actually talking about real people, and we're talking about like these allegations. And if you're saying stuff, it could be false, but you know that these have consequences on people's lives, and just be really careful doing that. And then the administrator of the account said, thanks for that, but go ahead, guys. We still want to hear what you have to say. Don't stop. So the need is for gossip. It used to be, you know, person to person in school, but now it's social media has taken us to a whole new level.
Kelly, did you have something you wanted to say?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I have so many thoughts about this. It's terrible. I was curious about your conversation with the police about it. Are they the ones who were telling you about David's Law, or was that through?
No, they did not. I called Chief Yarborough and I got a phone call from another officer. He said that he's actually been following this account for several months, like 4 to 5 months. He has seen it and he said he's really disturbed. He's got kids. He said when he sees those, it breaks his heart to see what is being posted about other people and they're really serious. He said there's nothing that they can do about it. There's nothing that law enforcement can do about it. And they're just waiting to see if we find out who, maybe we could get a name of someone who we hear through the grapevine is behind the account. No, actually, I had posted it to my Facebook. Some other, people, I think Trustee Weston mentioned, do I know about David's legacy, David's Law? And I said no. And then someone else mentioned to me as well that David's Foundation needs to be looked into. So I contacted them. I tried to qualify for a pro bono lawyer, and I don't qualify financially to have a lawyer. So that I did call our legal department to ask them, how about you guys do something about it? Like, you guys are the lawyers, maybe you can subpoena the account. And so last I heard from Jacob Woolston is that he contacted the police department and they're just waiting for additional information.
Thank you. Well, I think that this is probably going to be more discussion, and I think once we wrap up, we'll allow committees to discuss if there's an appropriate place for any additional recommendation to be considered. Is there any more new business that we want to discuss before we think about adjourning? Well, I want to make sure that committees have enough time today to visit and talk about what we're planning on doing. Again, a reminder that our next meeting isn't until April the 26th, so we have a month off. If your individual committees want to meet sometime during March, please feel free to do so, as by April, we really will have to have some closer to final drafts, and then we'll set the May meeting so that we can have it done prior to the board meeting that we will need to present at. And so we'll do some coordination to make sure we get that meeting in on time. So with that, I will entertain any motion to adjourn.
I'm motion to adjourn.
I'll second
Sorry.
that.
All right. So we've got a motion and a second, all in favor to adjourn so that you all can go to your breakout committees. Just aye, or raise your hand. All right.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. So then the SHAC meeting will be adjourned. We can stop recording and stop streaming